This is Ray Felix. Long time no see. Back here in New York City. How are you? Everything's good. On my end, everything's been kind of crazy. Everything, we had crazy storms here yesterday, and it's we have a special guest today. Special guest. We got Michael McAdam, who is a Canadian comic book artist who has a bunch of stuff coming out. And he's been a publisher for 27 years. We're going to feature some of his stuff. We're going to meet Michael. And we also have a special guest, Michael Grassia. He's going to help me co host this later on in the second half of the segment. Yeah. I've been kind of incognito. I busted my leg recently. I'm recovering from that. So, it's a lot of different stuff has been going on from that from from that point of view. I'm just trying to basically. I've been really busy as far as getting all my stuff together. Well, looks like there's a technical blackout. Hold on a second here. Like I said, we've had storms here, and we're just trying to get everything together. Get it all together, and that's what we're really going for. Just trying to get everything going. So here we are. I'm back. These things happen. So it's like I've been working on a new World Without Superheroes. We're about to launch a Kickstarter with the Black Power, Trevor Von Eeden drew issues 1 and 2 for the second volume of Bronx Heroes 2.0. So we originally ended at issue 4, and that was where the series left on a cliffhanger. And now we're continuing those stories of Black Power. And then we have new stuff with the Roach coming out soon as well. Well, it's not new to me, but it'll be new to you. So all these things are coming about very soon. So it's been very busy. You can see I'm clean shaved, trying to stay healthy, trying to stay active, even though I shouldn't be active. I'm supposed to be inactive. Need a haircut, that's all right. Trying to get my old ponytail back. I'm halfway there. If you could see that, it's got a little bit more to go. Just trying to stay positive in comics and avoid this whole political quagmire that we got going on with all these parties. I write comics that are political as well, like the Bronx Heroes in Trump Land that sold in 29 countries. If you didn't know that, it did. So, I mean, should have been a bigger deal here, but that was a whole nother story. I would say that as a indie publisher who was published by a publisher, it's still a lot of work, the legwork. It's not like back in the day where they promoted it 100%. You still have to. When you're with a small press publisher, like Arsenal Pulp Press, which is also Canadian, it's it takes, you're still kind of doing it if they don't have their ducks in a row with their distribution and their they international distribution, but on the United States side, that's not their market really. They have more like the rest of the world. So I was basically left to my own devices, myself and Tom, to promote and get the word out on the Trump land. So that was that. But just in a few minutes, we're going to bring in Michael McAdam. It's going to be pretty exciting. Show you some of his work here that we have. It's pretty amazing stuff. This guy is like pretty cool the way he has his stuff here. I mean, let's go to the videotape. go. And we got a new intro as well. I don't know if you guys saw that, but pretty cool intro. Thanks to placeit.net. Thanks for that. And let's see, we can get this rolling with the share screen. Let's present. There we go. And share this. Here we go. This is the press kit here. So you can see the House of Gargs, Two Gargoyle comics. And he has a lot of pretty cool stuff here. Let's see. He's got a lot of stuff. He's got an Instagram account. A lot of cool characters. This guy's been doing this for 27 years, as I mentioned. He's got Diaper Man. I mean, this is hilarious stuff. It's like this kind of like meets milk, the daring diaper. This guy is pretty. Look at this. This chick, she has like literally like pacifiers on her nipples. Those Canadians. So this is like some of his stuff that he has here. It's pretty cool. A lot of cool stuff that he has here. And if you go to the press kit here, we have a lot of cool stuff here. Let's see what we have. It's loading. So he's an actor, writer, and clearly he has a slew of artists that work on these books. It looks like he's Canadian born, and he's done a lot of voiceover stuff. You may have heard of some of the things that he's done, and it's pretty cool. It's really cool stuff. I mean, look at this. Diaper Man again. I mean, isn't that pretty good? Diaper Man's there. And he's got the gloaming. Looks almost like a Chucky type of character. Looks like a little horror comic. The Magical Mr. Punch. I love that title. Sounds like a movie, right? Spectrum. Coming out as a rainbow of experiences, especially with superpowers. Gotta ask about this. Thunder. He's got this blue, half Norse god, half Canadian. Super polite. See, there's a sense of humor in all these titles that he has here. Twilight Detective Agency, Girls Out. Look at these gargoyles. Xanthus, the light of joy. I think this guy's cool. He's pure joy, pure light. And these guys have quite a number of titles here. I mean, look at the art. The art's pretty phenomenal too. I mean, like this guy with the rubber ducky thing. Pretty good art. I mean, it's a pretty solid package. And as an artist and a writer, it's important as a self-publisher to really have one of these. So if you don't have a press kit that you can send to publishers, you're doing something wrong. Yeah, that's that. Stop sharing that. And without further ado, let's see if we can bring on our guest. Let's see if he's ready. Let's get to go into the green room. And, this summer of superhero movies, as we're waiting for him to enter the room, so I want to quickly say Guardians of the Galaxy. A lot of people are raving about it. I just thought it was such a letdown. It was just not. It's not good. Not good. Oh, he's coming right on. I don't know what people see. Everyone has a different opinion in these things, and that's good. But I just didn't think it was good at all. I'm sorry. I'm just sorry. I really hated it. It's really, maybe it's wrong of me to hate, but that's a strong word, but I really hated it. Same thing with the Flash. Flash is something I was like waiting for, and with all the controversy of Ezra Miller and the whole pedophilia thing, really turned me off to the actor. Didn't really care for him in the Justice League either version. Barry Allen is not a bumbling fool. Those who know me know that Carmen Infantino, the creator of the Flash, was my professor in SVA. He really cared about the character. He had a lot of respect for the character. He built this character into a legendary thing, and then Hollywood gets their mitts on it and they just poo-poo all over it. It's just like disappointing, to say the least. you know so it's just what can I tell you? you know it was a letdown. And sorry, I'm a bad host. He's texting on his own show. How dare he? Yeah, it's just yeah, I just thought it was just such a letdown. The Flash, especially because of the lawsuit with DC and Marvel. I'm not trying to say that the Flash movie is ripping off my book. It's not, but I mean, the concept was very similar. A world without metahumans. It's like in a world without superheroes, and three characters. It wasn't the Flashpoint story. That's all I got to say. If you've read Flashpoint and you saw that movie, it has nothing to do with it. If you read The World Without Superheroes and you watched that movie, you would see that the concepts were very, very similar. Anyway, that being said, let me stop talking about myself and let's bring on Michael McAdam. Here we go. Michael, how you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great. I'm right here. I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on the show.
Well, welcome. Glad that you're here. So was just showing the audience before bringing you on some of your comics. The Diaper Man looks pretty cool. The Spectrum's really awesome. Yeah, I mean, that's tell us all about it. Well, I mean, I gave you a little intro. I know you've been doing this for 27 years, and you also was an actor. So what types of roles did you play before getting into comics?
Well, the funny thing is I'm still acting. A lot of it's background stuff, but one of my most famous things, ironically, has nothing to do with my acting career. It was when I was a flight attendant for an airline, and I had a viral video when I do the safety demo, and it's still going around now. So that's kind of my claim to fame, is I'm that funny flight attendant.
Oh, that's
my,
cool.
my big acting thing.
Which airline were you flying with?
I was with WestJet.
Oh, WestJet. Oh, okay, that's Canadian, right?
Yeah, sure is.
It's like, I was like, I never heard of that. I was like, oh, that's cool. And then you became. So, what got you into acting? Was it just starting as a flight attendant and then getting into?
No, I kind of always wanted to be an actor, and I mean, I took drama in school, and then I just sort of found myself getting work and getting jobs. Like commercials, local commercials, that sort of thing. A couple of national cable commercials back in the day, and then I had kids, so then acting took a back seat while I raised my kids.
Right. And then you got into comics. How? What was the thing that sparked that interest in?
I've always been fascinated by comics. I have loved comics ever since I was a kid, almost obsessed with them, really. I just loved how the stories continued every month. And but I'm not an artist. And so I was always frustrated that I couldn't just make a comic. So I always wanted to do that. So I got together with a friend of mine who is an artist, and that's how we started Diaper Man. And people liked it. They thought it was funny. So we just kept doing it. And then we branched out. We wanted to do more. And so we did more comics together, and then more artists came on, and I just kept on going.
How many issues do you have of Diaper Man so far?
Issues. Well, Diaper Man started off as a web comic. So there were sort of episodes, and then they got longer and longer. And then we did a full issue, which was our number 13. Another full issue that was 14. And then we gathered all of those up into the first volume graphic novel.
Mm.
And then everything else we put in the second volume graphic novel. And this, Diaper Man Meets Milk, is actually the first Diaper Man story in 10 years.
Wow.
Because Diaper Man continues to sell, and people are like, when are you doing more Diaper Man? So got together with Jeremy Thew, who invented milk, and we put together this graphic novel.
That's so cool.
Thank you.
That is so hilarious. And what's the origin story of Diaper Man? Like, how does he get his powers, or does he have powers?
He does have powers. We decided to kind of go the old kind of pulp fiction route, where the powers are mystical, kind of like the Shadow or the Phantom.
Right.
So there's a plane crash, and he is adopted by a jungle tribe as a baby, and they follow the ways of pacifism. And they have this mystical pacifier that chooses him, and it's the source of his powers, and it pacifies people.
That's interesting. So he pacifies people rather than fighting them.
There's a martial arts component, because there's always got to be a martial arts component. He's very spiritual, very martial arty, but when push comes to shove, he would much rather pacify people than fight them. But he can defend himself, yes.
Right. That's very cool. And what are some of the shows that you do to promote these? And since you're mainly a Canadian artist, right? You're in Canada. What are some of the shows that you've attended? Like, if I wanted to go to a show in Canada, or like any indie artists in the United States, which ones would you recommend?
My main show is the big show here in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. It's called Calgary Fan Expo. It's run by the folks that do Fan Expo all over North America. So, Fan Expo New Orleans, Fan Expo Boston, Chicago. And they do it here in Vancouver, Calgary, Toronto, and I believe Regina. I'm not 100% sure on that one, but Fan Expo Calgary is definitely my home show. And then I do Panel One, which is an indie comics show in July. Right. And then I'm looking to branch out, so I might be venturing outside Western Canada in the near future. I've done a couple shows in the States when I was first getting started, but now I need much more organization to do that. So I'm sticking close to home for right now.
Are you anywhere near those fires that have been going on and smoking up?
All of Canada is on fire. Alberta, where I live, is Western Canada, and it was on fire for the beginning of the summer, and then I think a lot of it moved down east, because I know New York has been getting a lot of the smoke and fire from Canada, but that would be Quebec and parts east. But yeah, it just feels like our whole country is burning, and we're just praying for rain.
It's like Dante's Inferno.
Totally.
So you're adjacent. Your town is adjacent to which states in the United States?
We're due north of Montana, and touching a little bit of Idaho as well.
Oh, I see.
So we're not quite West Coast. We're almost there.
Do you have a lot of people like Americans jumping the border and trying to like relocate and live in Canada?
Not that I'm aware of. Canada is so mellow. I don't even know if I've ever even heard of us having border issues.
You're like an American immigration.
Except for the pandemic, right? Everybody's border closed during the pandemic. But apart from that, no, we're pretty mellow.
That's cool. So as a writer, like, what inspires you to write when you come up with ideas? And like Diaper Man, for instance, what were the ideas behind that? What was the things that really got to you?
It's people. That is my primary thing. Just the way people act and the things people say, and they just get me going. Right? They're very, very inspiring. Diaper Man was invented because Calgary had a fetish ball, like one Halloween. It was like, come dressed as your favorite fetish. And, fetish gear is all very, very, very expensive. Right. So I was Googling fetishes, and I said to my buddy, Mike, who is the artist on Diaper Man, I'm like, well, apparently you can just wear diapers and call it a fetish. And he's like, excellent. That would make you Diaper Man. You're a superhero. And I'm like, wait a minute. That's funny. That's hilarious. And so I invented Diaper Man, and he invented his arch nemesis, the Spanker. And we kind of went from there.
That's cool.
And it was all because we were researching fetishes for this fetish ball.
That is a riot. Yeah. I mean, that used to be a big thing in New York as well.
Yeah.
We don't really hear about it anymore. It's kind of weird, but yeah, it's kind of like that was something that happened like in the 90s and in the early 2000s. That
Well,
was a
because
huge
it was new, right? It was
was
avant-garde. It was different. It was strange. And now I'm sure it's like every Tuesday night.
right. Right. So was it going into your local bar now? A little scary.
Yeah. Yeah. Make sure you read the posters on the door before you go in. Yeah.
So, what were some of the books you read as a kid that it really inspired you to want to write comics? Because you said you were reading these monthly periodicals. Were they Canadian comics or American comics?
There was very little in the way of Canadian comics back when. Captain Canuck, of course, pops into my head.
Right.
But when I really started noticing that I was into comics, I was around 13. And I had broken my arm that summer, so I couldn't do any of the summer stuff my family was doing. So my dad bought me just stacks and stacks of comics to read. And that's when I discovered Alpha Flight, Marvel's Canadian superhero group, which just blew my mind.
John Byrne, yeah.
Yeah, and things like Amethyst, Blue Devil, Cerebus. Like I read anything and everything I could get my hands on. And my favorite book was Elf Quest. By Wendy and Richard Pini. That's like a huge deal for me. And it just made me I wanted to join the community. I wanted to become part of it. I wanted to join in somehow, and not being able to draw was very frustrating. So when I found a friend that could draw, I'm like, would you want to do a comic? And he said, yes. And I went, yay.
That's cool. So did you find yourself as a very young man, like starting to write these stories, or?
They were always in my head. I found out later, like somebody quoted the fact that a writer is someone that is always writing, even when they don't have a pen or pencil in their hand.
True.
And I'm like, yeah, that's very true. Because I always had characters just sort of jabbering away in my head. And I thought, what if would happen? What would happen if this story, that story, the other story? And it wasn't until I think I was playing D&D with some friends of mine in high school that I thought, this would make a really good story if I wrote it down. So I started doing just gaming writing, just writing about my character and what my character would do in whatever situation. And then suddenly I was filling up notebooks with just concepts and ideas and just going, I could make a comic out of this. I bet this would make a great comic, but I didn't know any artists. So those notebooks were just basically fan fiction.
Yeah. It's interesting you mentioned Amethyst, Princess of Gemworld. And Gary Cohn, the writer of that, he and I worked on a project about 10 years ago called Nemesis, Daughter of Night.
Yes.
So we were working on that. I'm actually working on the second installation of that's been taking a long time because, it's just, as you know, as you're writing different stories, things tend to overlap.
They do. I'm super jealous, by the way. Gary Cohn is like one of my favorite creators, especially from the 80s. And that's super. That's huge to me. So congratulations on that.
Oh yeah. Well, we used to work together. We were both teachers in the same school and then teamed up on a book.
Oh, nice.
He was teaching a writing course. I was teaching the comic course, and then we basically integrated our classes. And it was, it sounds like a dream job, but it was very difficult with New York City kids. It's like, so I thought that was pretty funny. And then Paris Cullens, also the artist of Blue Devil, he also worked on the Black Power or the Bronx Heroes issue number 4. So he worked on that as well.
Nice.
Yeah. It's a small world, right?
It is. That's hilarious to me, actually, because those are some of my most formative comics. Blue Devil remains one of my top 10 of all time. I love Blue Devil.
Oh, yeah. It's a pretty, he had a really good concept. I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about it. But he had a concept that DC rejected many years ago, back in the early 2000s. They were trying to bring back the Blue Devil. And what was interesting, this is actually, was this in the 2000s? It's probably in the 90s, actually. Maybe in the mid 90s. And some of the drawings, ironically, DC flat out turned it down, but then Hellboy came out and it looked very similar
Oh
to,
dear.
yeah. So, I mean, their rehash was Blue Devil with one horn missing, one horn, chopped, and the trench coat, and
Yeah.
it was like a totally different look that Paris had came up for him, and it looked fantastic. But then Hellboy came up through Dark Horse, and they were like, "Oh, what's this?"
Yeah.
And then they did I think Shadow Pact, which would totally took it in a totally different direction.
It
Which
did. Yeah.
he
Yeah.
was he wasn't happy about that, but you could talk to him about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just I like the character Blue Devil. It's a really cool sci-fi character, and then they switched it to like this whole demonology thing. And then working with a monkey detective, which I just didn't get. I was like, what is this? I don't know. Have you ever read those, the Shadow Pact?
Oh yeah. Like I actually was a big fan of Shadow Pact just because there was Blue Devil content,
Right.
even if it wasn't the Blue Devil we knew.
Yeah.
So I made myself a fan of the book.
Right. Same here. It's just like you're fond of the characters, and you want to follow them and see where these new writers take them.
Yeah.
And then you're
And
just
it is comics, right? So that if the direction it goes in is not your favorite, you just got to wait a minute,
right.
and then somebody will take it in a different direction, right?
Right,
So,
right, exactly. Yeah, he has a new story coming out called New Devil.
yes, I'm so waiting for it.
Yes, it's like but yeah, don't hold your breath. It's gonna take a while.
Yeah.
Maybe another year or two. It's the book is almost done, to believe it or not. It has been almost done for 4 or 5 years. But yeah. Let's get back to sorry, I digress a lot.
That's fine.
Let's go back into the magical Mr. Punch. I mean, I think that's a really, really interesting character as well.
He is one of my favorites, and I just happen to have him right here.
Oh, very cool.
Mr. Punch has been a part of me for, oh man, since the 90s. He's one of those characters that gestated and then would not leave me alone and just constantly lived in my head rent-free.
Yeah.
And so I put him in Twilight Detective Agency #1 as a cameo. He was just a mage that was investigating a murder that just happened to coincide with a murder that the two main characters are investigating in that book.
Right.
And then he exited at the end of the book. And people lost their minds. I mean, I got so much feedback on Mr. Punch to the exclusion of the main characters of the book that I thought, okay, obviously he needs his own book.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yes, you're showing it online here now. Mr. Punch is a British mage. He wears face makeup to conceal his identity from various nefarious entities.
Very cool.
So he's narrating present tense, and he's also narrating the flashbacks on how he got his abilities.
Very awesome.
Thank you.
Very cool. And Spectrum.
Yes.
I think that's a really cool line. This is like, I could see this as like a Netflix superhero movie or something.
Oh, I hope so. That would be awesome. I wanted to tell an LGBTQ story that didn't go straight for camp or straight for sex. I wanted to tell a story about real people. And I decided to use superheroes because, well, I love superheroes. But really, it's a coming out and joining the community story. It's about people and their lives. There was a comic a while ago called Young Heroes in Love, which was like a soap opera superhero comic. And I loved it. I really did. And so I guess Spectrum, in a way, has that vibe going for it. But there's also government conspiracy and actual supervillains and corruption. So there are real, battles they have to fight. But it's just as much about who they are out of the costumes as who they are in the costumes.
And this is the second issue, is the latest, or how many issues has you?
Yeah, #3 is underway right now. I just have the 2 issues so far. Jeremy Thew is the artist, and he is fantastic.
Oh, yes.
Really loving his work on the book. His colors are, right? because it needs to be a vivid colored book, because Spectrum's powers are light and color based. So I'm like, no, let's pump it up a notch. Let's make it really something.
It's really great. I love the colors.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people criticize my books because they're very bright and colorful, but because I think they're just swamped with too many of these muted tone comic books. It seems like Watchmen was special at a time because
Yes.
it was nothing like it, but it seems like everyone's just going for that and imitating that.
That's the frustrating thing about comics for me. Things go, it's like fashion. Things go in trends.
Yes.
And if you're not on trend, people notice and they comment.
Right.
Why aren't you like this other book? Like, because I'm not that book, right?
It's like you don't go to a museum and say, why isn't like the Chagall like the Van Gogh, right? It's like,
Yeah, right.
We accept artists for being individuals and having their own individual voice, but I always say that comics is the lowest common denominator of like artists aficionados, because they all want you to look like Jim Lee or like a Mark Silvestri or like a Rob Liefeld, or it's like they want it to always be familiar to something,
That's a good word. Yeah. People seek the familiarity, the comfort. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And they want their heroes to always reflect something that they've read before, which is disappointing, because if you look at Golden Age comics, they were probably the more experimental and the most creative,
They were really unfettered back then. The most fantastical stories, the craziest concepts. It was like nothing was out of reach.
Yeah.
And I think we were, as a culture, more innocent back then, where we would just take it as read, like whether it was silly or escapist or not, and we loved it. But now we've become a little bit more cynical. We need that hit of reality to make it feel real to us.
You're right.
Superman can't push the Earth out of the way of a meteor anymore.
He'll go through it. It's like,
yeah.
Yeah, and then also I feel that when you're looking at when Epic Comics came out, or like Robert Crumb, like who is the Robert Crumb of today? We don't have that person, right? Or who is?
No, we have. I mean, the indie comics are growing, but they're not underground like Robert Crumb's books were.
Right.
There's no counterculture really, because it's all becoming culture. One big culture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I find fascinating, though, is that people are saying, "Oh, the comic book industry is going down," and that's like when they talk about the mainstream and the movies, and people are getting hero fatigue from these terrible films. But I don't think that's the case, because every time I go to a convention, I used to go to conventions like you've been doing it as long. You've been doing 27 years. I've been doing this for about 25 years.
Mm-hmm.
Here in the States. And it used to be that I would see everyone, know everyone at the shows, no matter what state I was in, no matter where I went. It was like a crew of people,
Yes.
And now that's very different. Like every state you go to, each state has their own staple of an underground comics art.
Yep.
Which is pretty impressive, and it grew very quickly. You're talking about in the span of 20 years, maybe, or maybe less than that.
Well, the internet and desktop publishing and print on demand completely changed that game,
Oh, for sure.
Gone are the days of going to Kinko's after midnight to photocopy your comic at a discount, you can actually get real printing.
Yeah, you're right. I remember, and then also print on demand used to be a minimum of 1,000, and now that's gone as well.
Yeah.
What were some of the challenges that you faced when coming back with when you decided to start publishing? What were some of the challenges that you faced?
Well, when I started, we were just doing web comics because the idea of
no overhead.
Yeah. And I just thought, okay, we'll just leave it there. But then we started at conventions, actually. Printers would come to conventions and advertise their facilities, right?
Right.
And we're like, okay, maybe we'll try that. So we tried local. Then we ranged further afield to see if we could get a better deal.
Right.
And then I think it was Kablam that came out, and Kablam was amazing.
Right.
And they're based in Florida,
Right.
and they do graphic novels, comics, everything.
Yeah. I worked with them for 15 years, but I've since stopped. But yeah.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah, they are. They do. They. I would say they outlasted a lot of the earlier independent print on demand companies. That's for sure.
Yeah, because the companies I tried once or twice, they don't exist anymore.
Yeah, they don't.
They're just
Yeah.
like, right?
Like Comic Express was one of the early ones. They're gone.
Yeah.
Um, the first one that I used in Florida was Publishers Co-op. I don't think they're around anymore. They
Yeah.
were, and they had minimums of 1,000 or 2,000.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, there was a lot of publishers that just aren't around anymore. But so many more have come out. You know, now you have these bigger publishing companies getting in on it now as well. So, do you find it affordable as an indie publisher
A
compared to when you first
huge
started?
a huge benefit to me has been Kickstarter and crowdfunding,
Mhm.
Patreon, Kickstarter, those things, because it makes it sustainable. I mean, I don't think there's anybody in comics that would not say comics is a work of passion, not a
Right,
work of profit.
right.
You
Very
know,
true.
like, right? It's like no one's in this gig to get rich,
Right,
but
right.
because we want to share our stories, we want to tell stories.
Yeah,
And so crowdfunding really helps diffuse that cost,
right,
because if I can pay for the printing and the artist, then we're good. You know, like then I can do whatever I want with my books. I can give away copies of my books to publishers for if they to see if they want to publish.
mhm,
I can give them to the press, that kind of thing. It just makes me feel more free
mhm,
with how I handle my product.
right. And what are some of the strategies you use to have a successful campaign in Kickstarter?
Well, and if you're not already listening to it, I do suggest tuning into Comics Lab, the podcast, because those guys are also really good with how to
Mhm,
and getting your work out there. But for me, what I really enjoy doing is engaging with my audience on a personal level. People
mhm,
seem to respond to me, my personal touch,
mhm.
and they follow me and discover my work after the fact, as opposed to seeing my work and then finding out who did it. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Yeah, and then I sort of spread that around, and generate my little tiny mailing list, and then just get people to word of mouth it as it comes out.
and when you do shows, you have your mailing list ready.
I do.
Yeah, very
I
good.
do. It's that's still new for me, but
Mhm,
yes, I do.
yeah, I just did a show yesterday, and now I just realized I forgot to do that.
Oops.
because you have because usually just a pad you stick on the side, ask them, like
Yeah,
sometimes give 'em a discount or something, like say,
yeah,
hey, here's a free comic if you give us your thing, like your data. It's
yeah,
like,
absolutely. Which is another thing crowdfunding helps you with, like freebies. You
yeah,
can afford to do it. Yeah.
right, exactly, exactly. That's fantastic. So how many Kickstarters how many campaigns have you run so far?
I think 4 now.
And they were all
Um,
satisfactory.
yeah, my first one was for Gloaming, my horror comic, and I didn't know what I was doing. So that one wasn't successful,
Right, right.
but each subsequent one has been successful.
Well, that's great. And which one was the most response? Was it Diaper Man that had the biggest response, or
It's so weird. I thought for sure Diaper Man would have the biggest response because Milk is on the cover,
right,
right? And she's obviously very, very womany, right? But
right?
no, it was not. It was Thunder, #3, my Canadian superhero, Thunder.
Yeah, this guy here. Tell us about.
Yeah, and that this is the very issue I'm talking about. He funded about $750 over what I asked for.
Wow,
Yeah, so
awesome.
people were really interested in this Canadian superhero, half Norse god, half Canadian, super polite.
That was hilarious. I mean, that you have that in the actual.
That tagline has stopped people as they're walking by my table. They stop and they go, I have to know about this.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I could tell you're a good writer. You should be writing. You should be writing like trailers or like. Have you ever done like trailers, like voice acting over trailers?
I do voiceover stuff on the side. And yes, I have done trailers, but unfortunately, I'm not that guy, in
Right.
a world. Like I'm not that guy.
Right. Right.
I mean, I could write
Pretty
one,
good.
but I can only. This is my voice. This is what you get. So I'm more conversational than I am
All right.
promotional.
So tell us about Thunder.
Thunder is, he's half Norse god. The idea is that he was kidnapped from his home as a child,
Mhm.
raised in Asgard, and then escaped Asgard and returned to Earth to sort of start his life. And then almost immediately, he's called to be a hero to save people from a terrorist. And that just sort of leads him into an escalating version of being noticed by different people and adding complication to his life. So if he thought he was going to have a quiet life, he was quite wrong.
And who is this? Is this his like sidekick or his mentor? This guy.
The one with the spiky shoulders is Corin, who attacks him in issue number 2, thinking that Thunder is a villain. His motivation for thinking that is not quite clear. Also, we're not clear as the audience whether Corin will end up being a friend or a foe.
Right, right.
His sidekick is the boy next to him, whose name is Code Monkey.
I was gonna say, yeah, like a Neanderthal look. Yeah.
Yeah. He is actually holding the city of Vancouver hostage in issue number 1 because he got fired for looking the way he looks. And Thunder actually manages to talk him down. So Code Monkey becomes fascinated with Thunder, and he's like, I'm your number 1 fan, dude. And whatever that will lead to will be interesting as well.
Yeah. I like how he says, this isn't a goddamn comic book.
Yeah, it's a little meta, but yeah, because I wanted to, again, the people thing. Who Thunder is as important to me as what Thunder does or what he can do.
Right.
So he's not taking his sidekick with him. He's like, no, it's dangerous. You could get hurt. Like, stay home, right? This, of course, will not work out, but yes, that's what he's trying to do.
And then you got these monsters, this monster comic, the Twilight Detective Agency.
Yeah, it's a detective noir comic. It's just that the 2 detectives happen to be gargoyles. They're not human. And so they find supernatural mysteries to solve, all the while trying to hide the fact that they are not human.
What, do they have like some kind of illusion spell that can mask their appearance, or?
No, they don't. That's the problem. So they operate at night. They go from rooftop to rooftop and, investigate things that way and do their best to remain unseen.
That's super cool. What was the inspiration behind this one? I mean, I see it's a black and white book as well.
Yes, we really wanted to go noir and have it feel kind of old-timey.
Yeah, I see the factory. You got like a piano factory building here.
Yeah, exactly. And both Mike and I, Mike was the original artist on Twilight Detective Agency, and then he went on to other projects, so I got a different artist. But Mike and I always wanted to do a supernatural detective story. We love detective gumshoe noir, and I see now you're pulling out Girls Out, which is the sister comic to Twilight Detective Agency. And that is completely done by Mike. And he wanted to explore the world of gargoyles with girl characters. It's a fascinating, their book is much more active and action oriented and less mystery occult oriented. But it's the same universe.
That's super cool. It's great when you have spin-offs for stories. When I first started, I had these different time periods. Everything was like I was working with the 1960s, like the Vietnam War.
Oh, wow.
That was like, and then I also had the other book, Runaway Slave, was on during colonialism, the very beginnings of slavery in the Bronx. So those don't really connect. But as I continued to write and create more characters and write more stories, I started creating stories that it could connect.
Yes.
Like Brother Lone Star is a Western, and then I had Edgar Allan Poe as a character in his own book, Poe is a Raven, and then they actually get to meet up at one point. So, and then we have Astron Star Soldier, who's a sci-fi alien, and he came into the book A World Without Superheroes, which hasn't been put out yet, but I'm working on it now. It'll be out in the fall. But yeah,
I do love when things join up. I
yeah,
do.
join up. Yeah, and then with I love crime noir too. So with the Punchline Clown Detective, the entire Bronx heroes, superheroes, all join forces to stop this menace that's endangering the entire city of New York. So you have the heroes from Brooklyn, Queens, Manhattan, not Staten Island, but it's like
Right. It's
everyone
getting
else
super dark in here.
yes, they all get together, and so that's I love that. I think as a writer, it's fun to play with your characters. Like it's like a kid playing with their toys, but it's like a verbal, and
Yeah, I'm planning a summer crossover comic where Mr. Punch gathers up every hero from all my comics
yeah,
to solve a mystery.
yeah, that's sounds awesome, right? It's fun.
Yeah. I
It's
mean,
really
if the
fun.
big companies can do it, why can't I?
This guy I found the most interesting, the Xanis, the light of joy, and your whole description about his powers and stuff. Can you tell us?
Yeah. Xanthus is actually about an energy being that is the essence of joy, the frequency, if you will, of joy itself. And it is drawn to darkness. And in the trigger warning, okay, there is suicidal ideation in the book,
Mhm.
but the
Oh,
person that is wanting to end their life is rescued by Xanthus, who
mm,
joins with him. And his name is Sean Preston.
mm,
And the book is about fighting depression wherever it shows up, and fighting the darkness. So again, I'm using the metaphor of superheroes, but it's because there's so much to do with mental health in today's society.
right,
I wanted a kind of a mental health hero, actually,
right.
who espouses joy and remembering how to find your joy while at the same time actually having some pretty cool action and dark forces arrayed against him. So
That is super cool.
thank you.
Um, and do you have a? It sounds like almost like a prescription drug. Then says,
And just, oh my gosh, it does.
has like this prescription drug feeling to it. It's like,
I was a little bit inspired by Green Lantern and that universe.
yeah, yeah,
It has always bothered me that yellow was fear in
right.
Green Lantern. And I'm like, no, yellow's joy. I mean, my kitchen, which I'm currently sitting in, is yellow, right? And I'm just like, no, I want to write a book where yellow is joy.
Yeah, yellow is.
And
Yeah,
that's what Xanthus came out of.
yeah. I never understood that either. But the Sinestro, and which he seemed pretty cool. It's like,
Yeah.
they seem that he goes back and forth. Sometimes he's a Green Lantern, sometimes he's not.
Yeah.
Sometimes, and then they do all the other colors. The other spectrums. I really thought. Did you do this during like the lockdown? Was this like your lockdown project,
Sure
or?
was. Sure was.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that. Um, I kind of got a sense of that because of the concept is it's so like it's on the pulse of today of things that
Well, I
people.
think a lot of us struggled during lockdown, during COVID,
Yeah,
being cut off from our normal avenues of expression and just socialization. It really is about resisting
yeah,
those feelings and saying, no, I am going to go forward and create something of my own. I'm going to fight. Basically, I'm going to fight back and do something about this.
yeah,
And that's what this book is about.
yeah. It's really something. It's just
Thank you.
I even like the beginning right here. I think I could zoom in. Let's see.
Yeah, it's my first attempt at doing something kind of on a cosmic scale. A
Yeah.
lot of my books are very, down home, feet on the ground kind of books, but this one starts in space, with a completely alien being and makes its way to Earth.
Oh, I think this is great.
Yeah.
Who's the
Mark,
artist on this, you said?
yeah, Mark Marvita is the artist, and his brother Marvin is the colorist. I
Uh-huh.
have never worked with such a spectacular team.
Right.
As you can see by their colors, like, wow.
Yeah, they're really good.
Yeah, they've got it going on, and I just feel
Where
very
do you
lucky to be
find
working
these
with them.
guys? Yeah, a lot of good artists. I'm a writer as well, but I mean, I'm an artist and writer, but I've worked with a lot of different personalities, artists, and they're really it's hard to get a project like continuing like by they'll have like running they'll have a running start and they'll like start punching out pages and then somewhere in the middle there's like a slowdown and you're like, hey, what's going on? What's up with the project?
I think that's universal, what you're describing,
Yeah,
because no matter what project I work on, there's definitely initial interest, there's a bump, then
yeah,
there's a slump, and then it evens out. But
yeah.
that's with everyone I've ever worked with.
Isn't that something?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe that's something with mental health as well, like or
Could be. I call it art brain, just for lack of a better term, but all us creatives
right,
seem to have that, We're
right,
like really, really excited, and then we're like, oh, I can't possibly. And then finally we find our discipline,
right, exactly.
and I just see that so commonly.
I find it like a meditation. I include myself in that statement too, not just my other artists, but myself.
Yeah, yeah.
Like I'm working on a book right now. It was 36 pages and I got to page 17. I was like, why did I make this so long?
I could stop anytime.
Yeah. I was like, should I cut this out? I mean, well, sometimes I have to do that. Sometimes as the writer, you want to get as descriptive and as detailed as possible. And as the artist, you want to draw all that detail and really pull the audience in. But then as I'm wearing the editor's hat too, and I'm just like, well, this is too fucking long. I need to get this.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
this book has to, it has to hit the stands. It has to hit the printer. I give myself little deadlines to make sure that I can keep the machine running.
Yes, absolutely.
So, I mean, I find that, yeah, it's just like, it's a meditation, just like sitting in a convention at a table and selling your product is a meditation. You just,
Yeah.
Just some people, some people come to shows with me. I don't know if you've experienced this where you have a friend and they're like, how do you do this? You're just sitting here watching everyone walk by.
Well, to me, conventions are not only engagement,
Yeah.
with people and people that are, likely interested in your stuff, but they're
Right.
also inspiration.
Yeah.
I always come home from a convention tired, but completely awake in my mind.
Right.
I'm
Right.
like, oh, I could do this marketing, or, oh, I could do this story, or, oh, I haven't tried this concept. And, like I'm just making notes furiously after each show.
Right.
And I love to, like, I have a group chat with my art posse, my friends, Mike and Kyle and Jeremy, and we just go up and down and we analyze and we talk about it, what inspires us. And sometimes amazing things can come out of that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. Just the gathering of ideas,
Yes.
Yeah. I
I
really
see you're looking at my Mostest fruit pie ad.
right. I think it's really hungry like the wolves. It's like Duran Duran, was it?
Yep. Yep. In the 70s and early 80s, Hostess fruit pies always had ads in the back of comics. It was
Right.
always the heroes in ridiculous situations that they solve by feeding people fruit pies.
Yeah.
And I was obsessed. So I created a parody brand called Mostest fruit pies.
Yeah.
I even designed the package and everything, with Mike's help. And yeah, so now at the end of every Two Gargs comic, you'll find a Mostest fruit pie ad.
I think it's great.
Yeah.
I like you have the little TM on there. That's great.
Yeah.
Now the next step is for you to actually release these fruit pies. Actually, come out with them.
Oh man,
Yeah.
if I could hand out fruit pies at my table, buy a comic, get a fruit pie, I 100% would do that. Absolutely.
Yeah. I think it's great. I teamed up with a soda company years ago. I was trying to get into the alcohol business, but it's really tough. So I ended up going with soda guys. It was an Italian soda company that was local called Bronx Pop, and we
Yes.
teamed up. And I put my Bronx Heroes on the labels of the soda for a few years. And what was funny is that I ended up becoming a soda jerk for quite a few years because instead of I'd go to like conventions like Big Apple or like New York Comic Con, and I end up selling more soda than comics.
Right. That's the downside when the gimmick outsells the thing the
Right.
gimmick is advertising.
Right. I was like, wait a second, what's going on here? I mean, it was good, but it came to a crashing end because they eventually had IRS issues, but but I mean, yeah, it was very successful. I mean, we even had a case of Lime Ricky stolen, which was like the Roach or character. The Roach was Lime Ricky,
Yeah.
and had to be a security guard because it's like the convention was completely closed. Everyone was out. And then the next day you had like literally a case of soda, like one flavor disappeared. They didn't even go variety. They didn't.
Yeah.
So I think the Hostess pies would with your Mostess pies would be a hit for sure.
Absolutely. I even researched, like Double Bubble and Bazooka Joe,
Oh
like
yeah.
the little bubble gums that have comics in them.
Oh yeah. It's great stuff. I love that.
I looked high and low for a company that would do that.
Right.
There was one at one time out of Vegas, and they've since shut down. But for a brief shining moment,
Yeah.
the potential of having a bucket of bubble gum on my table with my own comics in it was
Right.
almost a reality, just for a brief moment.
Yeah. Oh, well, never say die. It's never,
Right. Yeah.
I think it's phenomenal. I mean, you got a really good product here. I love this. Who's the artist on this one here?
This is Jackson G.
Jackson G.
Yeah, and he's Jackson G Art, Gee,
Yeah.
on Instagram.
Wow. Beautiful work.
Yeah.
Who's this? This is the Gargoyle Girls.
Yes, that's Veronica. That's Mike's character, Veronica.
And this fellow back here that looks like George Carlin. Who's this?
That's Doug Carter. He is the narrator and prime character in Gloaming, my horror comic.
I love this rubber ducky guy.
Oh, Sleepers? Yeah, that's Diaper Man's sidekick.
Oh.
Yeah, his the rubber duck on his suit is actually a duckarang.
Is it really?
Yeah, he flings it. It goes whack, 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 whack. In case you hadn't noticed, Diaper Man is me making fun of comics.
Oh yeah, I see. He's got the pacifier ring, and
Yeah, firing its pacifying energy. Yeah,
that is. And this blonde fella here, who's this?
that's Spectrum. He is the lead character in the comic of the same name, and his alter ego is Richie Sorensen.
Very cool. Wow.
But he's there in his costume, and he's not glowing like he usually does because it would have been too busy. But that's what he does.
And this is Thunder. I love Thunder's costume. It's really cool.
Yes. Yeah, I went through several iterations of his costume before I finally got one I liked.
Now, is he like an embodiment of Thor since it's the Norse gods, or not using that name, or
No, in my universe, the gods are sealed away. They can't come to Earth, and so they elect champions to fight for them. And so he is born of Odin and a mortal woman. So he has one foot in both worlds. And he is expected, although he doesn't know this yet, to fight in this war.
So he's bred with a purpose.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And he would be furious to find that out.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just like looking at the colors and everything. It's beautiful work. So the artists that you hire are also the same colorist.
No, this was completely Jackson G. He did his own colors on this. Or sorry, I guess that's what you just said. Yeah, he did his own colors. It's all him.
Yeah, it's pretty fabulous stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So what's next?
What's next? Well, Spectrum number 3, like I said, is underway right now. I also have Agents of Paw, which is a buddy cop meets fairy tale comic. It's a wolf and a lion who are cops, basically. They're talking animals, and their job is to defeat the things that go bump in the night and save children's light from the dark fairies.
I like that. It's pretty
Thank you.
cool. Pretty cool. It's awesome.
Thank you.
What would I have seen anything that you were acting in, or?
No, just the flight attendant video is the thing that's gone the most viral.
I gotta check this out now.
Yeah, I've done some background work on Fargo, the series, but it's background, so you wouldn't see me.
Oh, like an extra, you mean? Like a
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, that's great. I did one for this Netflix show a few years back called what was it called? The Best Worst Summer Ever. And
Yeah.
in episode 8, you can catch me in my banners, kind of like you're here with your stuff.
Oh, very cool.
It was like a mock. They basically recreated like a fake San Diego Comic-Con, but it was in this town. So the host, it's a kid's show, it's a kid dog show.
Yeah.
And it's pretty funny. It's basically the Comic-Con is coming to their town at this hotel, and they have to try to get tickets. That's the whole that's 8 episodes of them trying to the show. It was pretty terrible, but I mean, it is like, but it was fun to be a part of it. Nonetheless, I thought it was pretty.
Yes.
It was pretty interesting to, I don't know. I dabbled in that myself a little bit, but it just, it was really hard. It's like, it's hard. It's hard work. So hats off to you too.
Thank you.
You're talking about like what, 13, 16-hour days, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's something. And are you in the SAG or is it
it's in Canada? It's called ACTRA.
ACTRA.
Yeah, the Association of Canadian Television and Radio Artists.
And you also have this symbol on your comic book as well. Like, there's a Comic Book Alliance group or something.
Yeah, the CCBA, the Canadian Comic Book Alliance, is a group of indie comics creators and publishers who, like, we basically just formed an alliance, and it's to increase the knowledge of Canadian comics and increase the recognition that there are Canadian indie comics out there, that there is an industry.
That's so cool. And how long has that been going on?
Oh man, I came in later, but I've been in it for at least 10 years now, I think.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how many
somewhere
members?
in there? Yeah.
That's like multiple members, like multiple publishers and indie creators.
Yeah. We've got some great people in there. Andrew Thomas and Davis Dewsbury do Auric of the Great White North, and Andrew is now lettering a comic for Kevin Smith, the Quick Stop comic. Yeah, like Sharon Gauthier, she's a fabulous colorist, and she does work all across the spectrum. Jeff Burton, who does a comic called Aurora Man, who is a Saskatchewan superhero. Really creating a tapestry of Canada with the Canadian Comic Book Alliance.
I think comic books are pretty phenomenal. It's a pretty cool vehicle still. I think it always has been, always will be.
Yeah.
Even though people are talking about like the movies and the all the crap that's associated with it. Do you ever see any of your products becoming films, or is that something you're venturing towards? Or
that's always the dream, I think.
Mm-hmm.
It's not something I'm actively pursuing. I'm not really shopping around yet because I feel like I don't have my feet under me yet, even after 25 years. Yeah. For example, Thunder's on issue 3. At the end of issue 5 is when it gets turned into a graphic novel. And I think a graphic novel which has one solid story arc is a lot easier to shop around than like 2 or 3 issues of floppies, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the same thing with Gloaming, which my newest graphic novel that just came out. This is issues 1 through 4 of Gloaming, and it's pretty much the whole first story arc. So this could be a really great like Netflix TV series or something if you're into horror and small town mystery.
Right.
But am I pursuing it? I would have to say not right now.
Right.
Which is not to say I would say no if you backed a dump truck of money up to my house. Just saying.
I mean, you are a writer, right? What you could do is like another treatment of your comic script and turn it into a film script. You know, it's like very little editing that would have to be done. You know, it's like they're very, very similar. You know,
I want to give a shout out to Michael Grassia, who's like, I'd buy a comic for a free fruit pie. Thank you, Michael.
He's supposed to be joining us shortly. Let's see. Oh, we have this. Let's see. They got another one. Love that you're too. Long time fan. I have to pick a favorite. All things Punch. Very cool.
Turkey Punch. Yeah, Turkey loves Punch. She just loves him.
That's cool. So, let me ask you something.
Sure.
For aspiring like writers, you know, or even artists, I mean, what is some advice you would give a writer who wanted to get into comics, like a young person or any age, really? But I always try to think about the next generation.
My number one advice to any creator is finish what you start.
Mm-hmm.
If you start writing a story or a comic or whatever, finish it.
Mm-hmm.
It's one thing to make reams and reams and reams of notes and say, oh, my backstory, oh, all the characters on my backstory. But until you finish that project, it's not going to go anywhere. You can have everything in your head all day long, but until you get it down and get it done, you're not going to move forward. I think 90% of people that start just peter out before they get to that point. Now, I just made up that number. I don't know if it's that high a number, but it just feels that way.
I would say that. I would say even higher, maybe 98.
Yeah.
you know,
people get they realize that it's work.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's very intimidating for them, you know. But it is work, but it's really, really rewarding when you push it over that finish line. When you type the end or whatever on your first script, it's amazing. And then you move on to the next thing and you keep going and you keep going.
Very true.
You know you're a writer when you can't not write.
Very true. Wise words. It's like, and also starting out, when you were starting out and starting to do the shows, because you said you started as a web series.
Yes.
What were some of the challenges that you faced going from an internet-based source comic to print? What were some of the things that you feel that you
well, getting it printed, you know, like getting the comic actually printed was difficult, you know, because trying to find a printing company that didn't have, you know, 1,000 minimum or anything like that. Also, never having done a show, not knowing how to display my work, just sort of having it laying there on the table with me sitting behind it going, hello, you know, and the idea that nobody knows who you are. Like you're nothing and no one to them. Like, so they're at a show, they're walking by looking at all the tables and you're competing with everybody else, you know, for attention. And so your setup, your, you know, like if you have a backdrop, like a banner or something, like you've got to have all these visual things that sort of tell your story for you before people even show up. And of course we didn't know any of that back then. So it was just us, a table and a couple of books on it. And that was very discouraging at the beginning because people weren't like, they didn't know, like Diaper Man is a strange comic if you don't know how to pitch it. If you don't know how to say it's Archie Comics meets the Tick, you know, like then people don't understand what the book is about, and they just kind of go, oh, and they walk away.
Yeah, they're like, what the hell is this thing? It's like,
yeah.
I can see that.
I literally had people pick up the book and go, what the hell is this?
Right, right,
and then just put it down like it burned them.
right, right, right. I would say that was my initial response, but I thought it was funny because coming from the background of like when I was in the early 2000s, I did an S&M comic book because I used to go to I lived in New York City, and I was like in the club scene, and then when you're in the club scene you meet different people, and there's different club scenes, and you start wondering like how dark is this?
Yeah.
You kind of like
Yeah.
sometimes you're like especially like in New York, you'll have like different clubs have different music and different genres on different floors.
Yes.
So I
Yeah.
mean, I don't know about Canadian clubs, but so then you could like you wander off into another, like, what is this? And then you see there's like a whole nother thing going on. It's not totally. And
Yeah.
then
It's like,
once I kind of stumbled into that, I'm like, oh, this is interesting. It's like people getting beaten. It's
like I was just looking for the bar. I'm gonna turn
right,
around.
right. So the whole diaper thing just immediately threw me back to boom like that. It's like that's
Well, and like I say, like I researched fetishes because I
yeah,
mean I knew about the S&M scene because it was pretty
right.
mainstream by that point.
Yeah.
But I didn't know half of what I looked up.
Right.
And I was like, wow. And I'm sorry, but it hit my funny bone.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
like,
hilarious.
imagine, and it just hit me. All superheroes are fetishists
Yes,
because they all have these tight leather or spandex or rubber outfits. And I'm
yes.
like, you can't tell me those weren't in their closets already. And they just found an excuse to wear it.
Right.
Right. And that was sort of the basis of Diaper Man.
I think Alan Moore really hit the nail on the head with Watchmen when in that aspect. And then did you
Yeah.
ever read the book Martial Law, like back in
Oh,
the
yes. God, yes.
that even more so, like the Brits really hit the nail on the head with making that connection of the fetish and the superheroes, when a lot of
Yeah.
Americans still never made that connection. I mean, maybe in the 40s with Wonder Woman, that was a big one,
Oh, yeah. Yeah. She, like the people writing her and creating her were into bondage.
Yeah, big time.
Um,
Yeah,
and I'm amazed at the stuff they got away with. I mean, spanking was a big thing in Wonder Woman and Superman.
yeah.
Um,
Spirit as
it
well.
was there, man. It was
It was
there.
there. It was there. There's just also you think about those, like you said, in more innocent times, that those societies, it, it didn't have nefarious, I guess, meanings, kind of like what
Yeah, the meaning was all different. Yeah.
it was really like childish, almost like tongue in cheek humor. And I
Yeah.
think that's what's
Yeah, I'd agree with
what
that.
I think you captured that with your Diaper Man book. It has that real innocence to it and humor. It's like a irony. I think that's pretty cool
Yeah.
the way you have that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would love to have you back on again with your artist, and maybe you can arrange for Gary Cohn to come on as well, and you guys have a meeting of the minds or something.
Oh, that would be a hoot.
I can see that you guys would really get along. You have a lot of in common. Just talking to you, I can see that you guys have a lot in common. Um, I guess that's who you attract, right? Like minds when you read something that.
Oh, that is the hope. Yeah. And that's another reason to get your work out there, and do conventions and just be present in your creative process, because you never know who you're going to run into that is going to strike sparks off you in a really good way.
Right.
I have met so many artists that I'm like, oh, I want to work with you. And kaboom, suddenly, like Jeremy Few and I, when we started Spectrum, it was just like, yes, kaboom, let's do this.
Now, what is the political atmosphere in Canada? I'm sure you've seen some things on American television with this blowback. Have you gotten any blowback because of the Spectrum character, or not really?
Oh, no. No, in fact, people often call Alberta, my province, as Canadian Texas,
Oh, is that right?
because it's a very conservative province. And I mean, I'm sitting here with I have my whole banner is a rainbow. I have pride flags on my table, and I have never ever had any blowback at all.
Well, that's good.
It just seems like comics is the great equalizer.
Yeah, I guess so. Right? Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. Do you guys? So, what would be your most I don't know if I asked this already. What would be? I think I did ask that question. Did I ask you what's your favorite show in Canada? I think I did, right?
My favorite show?
Yeah, like your favorite show to attend.
Oh, yeah, like, that would be Calgary Expo for sure.
Calgary Expo, yeah. But what? How does it stand out from the rest?
Size is a factor. The Calgary Expo is huge.
Mhm,
I think Toronto Fan Expo is slightly larger,
mhm,
but the Calgary Fan Expo has been going on longer.
mhm,
So it's got a very solid stable of people. Like we've had tons of celebrities come through here, and the show just keeps growing and growing.
mhm,
And so come April, like the whole city starts to get in on it.
mhm.
It's become a little bit like San Diego Comic-Con North,
Yeah.
where it's just generally accepted that, yeah, this is going to happen every year, and everybody gets excited for it.
Oh, that's great. It's fantastic. Do you find like engaging with people there is a lot easier, or do you prefer smaller shows though?
I prefer smaller shows because of the one-on-one, because
Mhm,
people are taking their time because they don't have to rush around to try to see everything,
mhm.
and they will stop and talk to you. And that's where I get a chance to make a memorable impression, at both as a creator and just as a person talking about his work.
Mm.
The larger shows, people tend to be in a hurry. You're competing with a lot more, both visually and with the noise of the crowd and whatnot. And sometimes people are too fatigued by the time they get to your table to even really engage. They're
I'm
just like,
broke. I'm
oh
broke.
yeah, stuff is great.
Yeah, it's like you see them like, oh, I spent all my money on this sword, and they're, the giant Thundercat sword or something. It's like talking from
Yeah,
experience. Yeah, it's the guy's like, oh,
yeah.
I really want to, but I spent $300 on this sword. It's like, oh, why did you spend three
Then I
hundred
say,
dollars?
it's okay. I take credit, and I hold up my Square reader. It's
That's
like,
it.
put a target. Do it.
Who are some of the writers that inspired you? I know you mentioned Gary Cohn, but aside from comics, any novelists or writers that or poets that you read growing up or that you continue to
The
read?
first people that come to mind are Neil Gaiman and Stephen King.
Yeah.
Very much a fan of their work and their styles.
Mhm.
Um, and of course, I'm gonna mess this up. Dan Mishkin,
Oh
also
yeah.
who worked with Gary Cohn. Chris
Yeah.
Claremont, very formative in my teen years for his run on the X-Men.
Mhm.
Um, and J.M. DeMatteis, Brian Bendis is someone whose voice I really appreciate.
Mhm.
And Jim Zubkovich. I really like his style and his presence as well.
What did he work on?
He's working on Conan right now
Oh,
for
is that right?
Marvel.
Oh.
Yeah,
Oh wow. Okay.
yeah.
Cool.
He started in web comics with a comic called The Makeshift Miracle, and now he's working for Marvel doing Conan. I mean,
Mhm.
wow.
So you still read comic books? You still buy comics?
I have a to-read pile as tall as my torso. Um, I still go get my comics every 2 weeks or so,
Yeah.
and I read them when I can, and I make a dent in the pile, and I still keep getting more comics, graphic novels, actual novels. Like I'm a voracious reader when I read, but I find that I have to really carve out time to read.
Yeah, yeah. I find that as I get older, uh, it becomes more challenging to stop and smell the flowers. It's like,
I
and,
would agree with that. Yeah.
because your day to day is. I spend a lot of time in front of the computer just hashing out stuff, and if I'm not drawing, then I'm designing. I teach animation, so like right now, like I had this surgery on my leg. You can't see my leg, but it's like it's like I basically had a surgery. So I had it was a secret blessing because I had it like a week and a half off from work before the summer
Nice.
came in. And I took basically I'm off for 2.5 months, and I just got to color, write. It's like some me time, It's like
Yes. Yes.
this week I'm going to start animating. Do some little animations for my fall classes that I prepare some animation shorts for them. So yeah, I think that sometimes you have to, take those lemons that life hands you and make them, make some lemonade and
You know you're creative when it's like, yay, I can't go to work.
right,
Like I have
exactly.
time for me.
Right, exactly. And like you said, you're a dad and you have, like you said, two kids, right? So I mean,
Yeah.
it's, you have to have you really have to like carve out the time slot and have your calendar and everything ready so that you can everyone gets their fair share of time,
Yes.
dad and creativity and
Yeah.
fans.
All the hats you have to wear. Yeah.
Yeah. As a father, do you find that challenging, like doing the shows and juggling? And
Not anymore. My kids are adults now. They're like 20 and 18 now.
oh, you're
In fact, I corralled my youngest into working the table with me at a show,
oh, that's good.
and she was amazing. She's normally very shy and quiet, but no, she was totally into it, and I could leave the table for periods of time, to go get a drink or go to the washroom or whatever, and she was engaged in handling the business while I was gone, and it was quite cool to see.
Wow, you heard that? That's what- it was fabulous having you on, man. I really appreciate it. I would love to have you on again, Michael.
You
And,
got it, Ray.
you know, it's amazing. Where can we find you? Where can we find your work?
Most of my work you can find through twogargs.com. That's TWOGARGS.com. Warning, right now I am navigating between two hosts, and so the website is not functional right now, but twogargs.com, and on all the social medias, I am Two Gargs. So you can find me on all the social medias as well.
Awesome. Oh, it looks like Michael Grassia. I was just about to close this out, and Michael Grassia just popped out. Hold on a second. Let's see what he has to say. Hold on. This is Michael Grassia.
Hello, Michael Grassia. How are you?
Hello, Michael and Ray. How you doing?
Wonderful.
So let me start off by saying, when Ray told me this was on at 7:00, and I end my day job at 8:30 p.m. I said, you're not going to have time for me to come on the show. He's like, no, we'll still be on. Don't worry. Now, with that said, I meant every word about the fruit pie. I would buy a comic for a free fruit pie. And if you're going based on the old Hostess flavors,
Yeah.
I love the lemon. Just letting
Yep.
you know. Just
Yep.
letting you know.
The lemon, and then there was one that was like a cream filling. What was that one called?
Vanilla cream, I think.
It was vanilla
right?
cream or something, right?
Oh, see, we didn't get that in Canada. The pudding pies.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
pudding.
that's what it. Yeah,
The vanilla
Oh,
chocolate.
vanilla pudding. Yeah.
I'd murder a human being for a pudding pie. They just sounded so good. Like, wow.
They were.
It's amazing that I didn't get diabetes eating the crap that I ate as a kid.
It's okay. I got it for both of us. Don't worry.
It's like, you had any questions? You were listening to the podcast.
Actually, I'll be honest.
I think I covered a lot.
Okay, so I'm not going to go into my day job. I don't share it publicly, mostly because I don't get paid to. So what I do is, though, I work for an online art academy. I will say that, and I was doing some very deep work, but I like background noise on. So I put you guys on, so I knew what to talk about, but I missed so much because I was so into the work that I only caught glimpses of things, of words that you guys said. I will say your characters were really very interesting. The stuff I heard about the characters, I did really enjoy. I did take a quick peek over at some of the designs when Ray was going through the book. I like the concepts in design. I do want to see more.
Yay! That, by the way, is the biggest compliment I think any creator can ever hear. Is someone saying they would like to see more. That's huge. So thank you.
I mean it.
As an American, how can I get some of your comics?
Oh,
That's
I I
international.
do sell them online, on Indie Planet and Drive Through Comics.
Oh, through
Okay.
Indie Planet.
All
Okay.
right.
Yeah, and there are links on my site when it's up.
Right.
But if you just Google Two Gargoyles Comics, you should be able to find me.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Fantastic.
To know.
And that's shipped from Florida, so obviously, so you don't have to pay the international shipping. So
That's correct.
I remember having sending comics over to Canada once, and it cost me like $75. I was like,
I know, it's crazy. It's
I was like,
crazy.
it's like what the heck? It's like it's right over them. I mean, why is that? It's like right over there. It's like literally, it's closer than California.
You
You know?
basically need a Kickstarter just for shipping.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. So is that one of the pitfalls you had when you did your Kickstarter? When you had people, did you have a lot of people from the U.S. ordering your books, and then?
Yeah, but I mean, and they warn you about this. It's like factor in your shipping to your goal, right? Because so many people think, oh, I only need this much, and then they've got to ship out their product at the end, and suddenly they're in the hole, because they didn't anticipate. So I always, like I try to print my books first, then I weigh them, and I'm like, okay, how much is it going to be to ship to the States? And then I set that price, and then set the Canadian price.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, you do have to pay attention to that when you're crowdfunding. It's like
Mhm.
include your shipping.
Right. Makes
Smart.
sense.
Very smart.
Yeah. I did a Kickstarter once, and I did an Indiegogo once, and that just never.
I don't have a plan to ever crowdfund. I can't.
It's,
I think my anxiety is too high to have to watch. Is somebody donating? How come refresh? That would be me, and I can't handle that mentally. So, yeah, I'm not. I don't think I could ever do crowdfunding.
That's not an uncommon thing. One of the people I work with is also really anxious about stuff like that. And I think that kind of goes with our territory, with the creative territory. Like, it's almost like you're being judged with money, like, oh, nobody likes my stuff, they're not donating, or oh my God, like, oh, it's only crept up $2 today. What's wrong? Why do people hate me?
But I get that when I post a piece of art on Instagram, and it's like, why? I just posted it. Why is there only 3 likes? Come on. I need more hearts. Give me more hearts. It gets up to 14. Why isn't it 20? It's just.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that, because I started doing these like remix videos of the most like craziest things that I could find on Instagram. And then I get like these crazy massive hits. Like I had one remix video that I didn't even make it. I just, you just kind of like taking this other video that you saw, and I had like 30,000 hits on it. But then I look at my art like, okay, does this translate? Do they go through my stuff and start looking and liking my art? That's the idea, right?
Yeah.
No, it doesn't. I still have 16 likes or 3 likes or 20 likes. It's like, wait a second. But then I have like 16,000 on this other video. So the highest one I have is like, I think it's at 79. It was like a 9/11 one. And it was like 79,000. It was just like my phone was ringing all night. I was like, wow, this is great. This is great.
Yeah.
Go look at my comic book art. No, they're not.
And that's the thing. If we could figure out what it was that attracted people to our work specifically, every convention would be a success. Every Kickstarter would be huge. Every book that we put out would be a big seller, but you can never anticipate, right? It's so mercurial, the audience, the trends, the times, what's going to hit, what's going to be your big bubble burster, right? Who knows?
Absolutely. What do you think, Michael? You have any? I know you missed out on some stuff.
I missed on an hour and a half of
Gems.
interview. I mean, I saw. I don't know what to ask right now. I'd love to see the work back up. I will say I heard very interesting things, and as Ray is aware, I also have a show which I'll have to bring you on one day and talk about.
I would love that.
Yeah,
I would love that.
So you come on. Ray's been on my show plenty of times. Don't worry, I won't bring him on. No, don't.
I'm
Ray
like the monkey wrench of the.
Ray is always an interesting guest. We love Ray.
Yeah,
the fans love him. Yeah, we're going to.
I want to flip these so you can see him again, Michael. He had,
I know you sent me some stuff. I didn't get to look at everything on my lunch
this was
hour.
Diaper Man, right?
Diaper Man. Now I don't, now I don't know if you know this.
Meets milk.
Okay. And I'm sure there's no issue with this, but do you know there was a Diaper Man already?
Yeah, the Mighty Heroes.
Yes. Okay.
Ralph Bakshi.
I almost wore that
Oh,
shirt
really?
today.
Ralph
So
Bakshi, really?
Ralph
Yeah, and
Bakshi did the Mighty Heroes in the
Yeah.
60s, and
Yeah.
they were a parody on superheroes. There was Rope Man, Diaper Man as the team leader,
Yeah.
Tornado Man, Strong Man.
Where was this
It
aired?
was Cuckoo Man.
Yes.
Was this aired?
Yeah, this was aired in
TV or-
America. You got to look it up.
Because I've seen everything Ralph Bakshi. I've never heard of this before.
No, it was when I believe he was still at Terry Toons, and they were like not doing Mighty Mouse anymore. It was kind of towards the end of Terry Toons.
So is this the 60s version?
The 60s, yeah. If you look up Mighty Heroes, and that's the only thing. Like when I heard Diaper Man, I think of that show and him picking up his diaper in the opening credits or when he transforms. That's the thing. But I love the concept. I love that he's got the pacifier ring and shoots out the pacifying beams and stuff. It's just it's completely different, but like an awesome concept.
Thank you.
Well, what I like about your stuff, McAdam, is that the glooming, you have all these little taglines there, like these. Every town has its secrets. One has too many. I mean, that's just like a gem. It's like a trailer, like in like less than 3 seconds, right there.
Yeah. The tagline. All my comics have them now because Thunder was the first, and like I say, it would stop people. Like they would stop and go, "What is this about?" And I'm like, "Okay, I'm going to put that on all my comics. A little tagline, a little teaser,
it's
hopefully
smart.
to get you interested." Yeah,
it's really smart.
I heard. Did I hear right that you work in that you're an actor, correct?
Yes, I am.
Yeah. So have you ever pitched anything, for film, TV, or you just act?
No, we were talking about that earlier.
Okay.
I'm not opposed to the idea of pitching. I just don't feel that I'm ready yet.
Okay.
I want to wait till I have a couple graphic novels under my belt so I can have a whole complete story and go, here, have a look at this.
Well, no, that's smart. But what I was getting at is because I've pitched animations in the past. I've pitched comics and stuff. That tagline there, or a log line, whatever you want to call it, that is like the key to pitching. That is the key to getting people interested. So if you have a great log line and you bring it into a producer, that's supposed to be the little thing to say, yes, we want to hear more. But now that you're doing it to an audience, it's and if they're coming in and asking, it works.
Yeah.
Totally. That if you were to say, hey, I'm going to bring this to a producer, I have these many people. Every time I bring this up, people read the log line and be like, I want to know more. It should do it to them. It's like, it's just smart to have that.
Half Norse god, half Canadian, super polite. I mean, it's just like, that's the movie right there. It's there. You got it. It's all there, I don't think you have to wait for the graphic novel. I really don't think so. Yeah. Remember, even though it was a terrible movie, the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen film was being made simultaneously as the comic book was being produced.
Yes, that's right. It was.
I mean, that's why it was so terrible, because then you're like, oh, there's a great book. And then they.
Well, I think, listen, I won't say the movie was terrible, but it wasn't my favorite adaptation. It could have been better. But one of the things was with that movie is they brought like characters like Tom Sawyer in, who wasn't even in the book. It was like, so if you read the comic, you were like, okay, I know, but everybody in that is a public domain character. You technically don't need any of those guys. You can make up whatever ones you want and still have the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, as long as it was public domain,
And the story behind that is that they actually had someone that submitted a script. The film the reason why it was so different, because the film was that whole thing with the Tom Sawyer and all that. That was another idea that was very similar to League of Extraordinary Gentlemen that was pitched to the studio, because that was Warner Brothers, right?
I don't remember.
And that ended up turning into a lawsuit. So the writer sued. He didn't know about the comic book, A League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, and he sued the studio because the people that he had submitted the script to were the same people working on the film. So it's like they took Alan Moore's writing, like which is gold, and then took some Hollywood guy trying to break in and mixed it together. I was like, why would you do that? It's Alan Moore. You don't need to do that. But
yeah, but everything Alan Moore, everything that's adapted from an Alan Moore comic, I have never liked in film.
yeah,
I gotta say that.
V for Vendetta. You didn't like V for Vendetta?
You know, and I never finished it, to be honest with you.
What?
I didn't see it in the theater. I watched it on TV. I fell asleep during the movie because I was, you know, it was one of those things put on at night, and I never decided to go back to finish it.
Yeah,
but
as a writer, and I love Alan Moore's comics, but it's really hard to get into his books. I've been reading Jerusalem. I still haven't finished it. I had to put it down because it was just so heavy, text heavy, and description.
Well, that's
Move
his,
on.
That's
Move
his
on.
style, though. I mean,
and then Illuminations, which is a new one, and I got a signed copy from a friend. It was a birthday gift. Really good, but he keeps repeating. And then the house with the wall without clocks, like 30 times. It's like, I got it. It's like, you don't have to keep saying it. You know, it's like, it's a collection of your short stories. But it's just like, I haven't got past that first one. It's like, I could skip around, you know, because they're not really connected, or at least, you know, they're short stories. You think they're not connected, but I was like, well, what if they are at the end? You never know if they merge, you know, but so that's what's been keeping me. So Alan Moore's writing as a novel is more ADD than it is his.
I resonate with that.
I guess we all have it. You know, like Anne Rice was another writer that I really enjoyed, but she described like the buttons and the seams on the jacket.
Oh, she was a very like all five senses writer for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's just it's like okay, I'm on like page 30 and she's still describing this room. It's like, come on. It's like I mean, what makes it that's what makes it so good for film, you know.
Yeah.
I don't understand why Batman hasn't done The Killing Joke as a film yet, you know, just
well, because they haven't got a Batman film right yet. So
it's like, well, they did a cartoon adaptation, but that was terrible. It's like,
yeah, it wasn't the great. They changed the ending in that, right? I think
they added an entire subplot that wasn't there before.
Yeah.
Where they had Batman having relations with Batgirl. I was like, what?
Yeah, that was a thing.
Yeah, I was like watching it with my kid, and I was like, wait a minute, I gotta turn this off. It's like,
Dad has to preview this before you get to see the rest. Sorry.
This is not your dad's Batman. He's sleeping with underage girls. Sorry. It's like
oh, she was a college student by then. She wasn't underage, right? Because they did that in the animated series too later on. Like when you find out in
on it. It was hinted on, but it wasn't in your face like
no.
that.
But in the Return of the Joker, the Batman Beyond, they talk about why, you know, Bruce and Dick kind of had a falling out.
Yes, they did.
They explained that they had a relationship.
Right. They did.
Yeah. So.
But she wasn't in a wheelchair in that one, right?
No, I don't think they ever did. She was the new commissioner in that series. Yeah. So in Batman Beyond.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, thanks again, Michael.
Thank you.
Both Michaels. You guys should definitely hook up and get in tune, which is on Wednesday nights. Is that when you do that?
Wednesday nights, 9 p.m.
Wednesday nights, 9 p.m. So, yeah, I mean, link up with that and stick around. We're going to just end this segment. And we're going to be having every week new and exciting artists coming on. I finally got off my ass and said, let's do this again. So with the closing credits, thanks to everyone. And this is the new opening here.
This is the opening?
Yeah. we're gone.